Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest mystery in human life is not what lies beyond the stars, but what lies within the mind. Too many live as if their potential is fixed, buried, unreachable, or worse, non-existent. But let me tell you a truth that history, science, and philosophy agree upon. The limits you believe in are almost always imagined. Everything begins with belief. You cannot unlock what you do not believe is there. Potential is not a gift handed to the lucky few. It is a force inside every individual. The only difference between those who rise and those who settle is that the former dared to believe in the invisible strength that lies within. You must be your own first believer. If you doubt yourself, the world will too. If you trust yourself, the world begins to follow. But belief alone is not enough. You must have a purpose. Definiteness of purpose is the cornerstone of every great achievement. A man or woman without a purpose is like a ship without a rudder, adrift, directionless, and subject to every wind and wave. But when you know where you're going, your mind becomes a tool rather than a trap. It sharpens, it focuses, and it begins to work for you, not against you. Desire is your fuel, and faith is your engine. A vague wish will not carry you across the valley of struggle, but a burning desire, held with faith, creates motion. When you want something so badly that it dominates your thoughts, you begin to speak, walk, and act in alignment with it, and the universe responds, not through magic, but through cause and effect. You begin to notice opportunities you once ignored. You begin to act with confidence you didn't know you had. Understand this, your mind is your workshop. Every invention, every building, every business, every masterpiece began as a thought. The mind, trained and focused, is the most powerful force known to man. You become the architect of your destiny by learning to use your imagination, your focus, and your emotion in harmony. Build the life you want first inside your mind, and the world begins to mirror it. But don't expect instant results. Persistence is the bridge between vision and reality. Many people quit not because they failed, but because they never stayed long enough to succeed. Every breakthrough comes just beyond the point where most people give up. Be the one who doesn't. Fear will whisper to you. Doubt will knock on your door. But understand, fear is not fact. It is a thought, and thoughts can be changed. You must train your mind to become its master, not its slave. You cannot unlock your potential while chained to worry, guilt, and hesitation. Finally, never forget this. You become what you think about most. Guard your mind, feed it with purpose, feed it with belief, feed it with visions of what is possible. Because your thoughts shape your self-image guides your actions, and your actions carve your future. Ladies and gentlemen, the key to your potential is not outside you. It's not in some mentor, miracle, or moment of luck. It's inside you, quiet, waiting, ready. Unlock it with belief, direction, discipline, and desire. And when you do, the world will no longer ask who you are. It will know. Everything begins with belief. Before any dream is realized, before any goal is achieved, and before any change is made, belief is the seed. It is the origin of all success, the foundation of all action, and the beginning of all transformation. Without belief, nothing is possible. With it, even the impossible begins to bend. Belief is the internal permission we give ourselves to pursue what's possible. A person who does not believe in their own potential will never access it. They will not try hard enough, stay long enough, or rise high enough, because they will have already written the ending in their mind, I can't. That simple, subtle conclusion will rob them of strength before they even begin. And this is why so many people with talent, intelligence, or opportunity still fail. They never truly believed they were worthy of success, so they sabotaged it with their own thinking. It's not arrogance to believe in yourself, it's responsibility. If you don't believe you have something valuable within you, why would anyone else believe it? Why would the world open doors for a person who doubts they should walk through them? Belief is not about ego. It's about recognizing that you have something to offer, something to become, and something to fight for. This belief must come before evidence. That's what makes it powerful. You don't wait to believe until success shows up. You believe so that success can show up. This is why belief is a discipline. It's not a feeling you stumble into. It's a choice you commit to. When everything around you says it's not possible, belief stands alone and says, try anyway. When you feel tired, belief says, push again. When failure knocks, belief says, that wasn't the end. And slowly, the world begins to reflect what you've held firm inside. The truth is, we are always living out our beliefs, whether we're aware of them or not. If you believe you're limited, you'll live small. If you believe you're unlucky, you'll overlook opportunities. If you believe you're not enough, you'll shrink away from challenge. But if you believe that you are capable of growth, worthy of success, and built for purpose, then everything begins to move differently. Your energy shifts, your focus sharpens, your actions align. Belief is not magic, but it is magnetic. It attracts the resources, people, and circumstances you need because you're tuned to see them, act on them, and persevere through them. A person without belief walks past opportunity and doesn't notice it. A person with belief walks into the same room and sees doors where others see walls. That's the difference. Think of every great achievement in history. It began with belief. Someone had to believe in the airplane before one ever flew. Someone had to believe in electricity before anyone could see it light a bulb. Someone had to believe in freedom before any nation could fight for it. Belief is not about certainty, it's about vision. The willingness to see something before it exists. The courage to trust in what you can become before the world recognizes it. If you want to unlock your potential, you cannot wait for the world to give you permission. You must give it to yourself. You must wake up each day with a belief that even if no one sees it yet, even if no one applauds it, there is something inside you worth fighting for. That belief, when held with consistency, becomes unshakable. And once it becomes unshakable, nothing can stop you. Everything you do, everything you achieve, and everything you become begins with one question. Do you believe it's possible? Because if you do, that's where it all starts. Definiteness of purpose is the starting point of success. No achievement, no invention, no progress in any area of life begins without a clear and definite direction. Purpose is the compass of human potential. Without it, energy is scattered, time is wasted, and potential remains locked behind indecision. A person with no purpose is like a traveler with no destination. Moving, perhaps, but going nowhere. The most powerful individuals in history, scientists, leaders, inventors, and entrepreneurs, had one thing in common: they knew exactly what they wanted. They had a clear picture of the outcome they were pursuing. And because they were definite about what they wanted, every action, every thought, and every decision was pulled in one direction. That is the power of a definite purpose. It organizes your mind, it channels your will, and it brings your focus to a razor's edge. People often say they want success, but when you ask them, success in what? They stumble. They want to be better, richer, happier, but they haven't defined what those words mean. And if you can't define your target, how will you ever hit it? Vague desires produce vague results, but definite desires ignite specific plans, and specific plans lead to specific outcomes. When you define your purpose clearly, you set a direction that your subconscious mind begins to follow. Your thoughts start aligning, your habits start forming, your priorities begin to sort themselves out. Opportunities that once looked like noise suddenly become obvious. Decisions that once felt paralyzing become clear. Why? Because everything you do is measured against your purpose. If it moves you forward, it stays. If it doesn't, it goes. That kind of clarity is rare and valuable. Your definite purpose becomes your standard. It becomes the blueprint of your energy. If you know what you want, you stop drifting. You stop wasting time. You stop saying yes to things that have nothing to do with where you're going. It gives you power. Not the power to control everything, but the power to control yourself. And that is where real success begins. Now, having a purpose does not mean the journey will be easy, but it does mean the journey will be meaningful. When you know why you're doing something, you can endure almost anything. You can face setbacks without quitting. You can tolerate confusion without losing heart, Because you have something pulling you forward, a reason, a mission, a why. This definiteness of purpose must be personal. It must matter to you, not to your parents, not to your teachers, not to society. You must choose it, own it, believe in it. If your purpose is borrowed, your motivation will be weak. If your purpose is vague, your results will be scattered. But if your purpose is real, if it comes from within, then it will sustain you through the storms of failure, rejection, and doubt. You don't need to have everything figured out right now, but you do need to start with clarity. What are you aiming for? What problem are you here to solve? What goal burns in your mind when you wake up? Write it, speak it, own it. Because once you declare it, you activate something powerful in yourself. You begin to move with intention, and when you move with intention, the world responds, doors open, people align, momentum builds. Definiteness of purpose turns potential into direction, and direction into results. It's the point where wishes become willpower, and dreams become discipline. So if you truly want to unlock your potential, don't drift. Decide, define, and dedicate yourself completely to what you are here to do. Because clarity is power, and your future begins the moment you get clear on your purpose. Desire backed by faith creates reality. These two forces, burning desire and unwavering belief, are the engines behind all great achievement. On their own, they're powerful, but when combined, they transform the invisible into the visible. They take something imagined and make it manifest. Every dream realized, every record broken, every obstacle overcome, can be traced back to a moment when someone dared to want something so deeply and believed so strongly that the world around them had no choice but to bend in response. Desire is the starting spark. It is not a casual wish or a passing thought. It is a burning need, a hunger that occupies your mind, steals your attention, and keeps you awake at night. People often misunderstand desire. They confuse it with mere preference, but preference does not produce greatness. You don't build a legacy with it would be nice if. You build it with I must, I will. I cannot go another day without moving toward this. However, desire alone is not enough. The world is full of people who want more money, more freedom, more success. But wanting without believing is like trying to start a fire with no oxygen. Belief is what breathes life into your desire. It turns your want into will. Faith is the deep inner knowing, not guessing, not hoping, but knowing that what you desire is already on its way so long as you do your part. And here's the key, faith must be active. Passive faith, the kind where people say maybe it will happen, doesn't move anything, but active faith changes your behavior. It changes how you speak, how you walk, how you work. A person who truly believes in their goal wakes up with purpose, endures struggle with resilience, and responds to failure not with despair, but with determination. Because they aren't wondering if it's possible, they've already decided that it is. This is not fantasy. This is the psychology of achievement. Your subconscious mind responds to repetition, emotion, and clarity. When you hold a desire clearly in your mind and reinforce it with consistent belief, your subconscious begins to accept it as real. You start to notice ideas, people, and opportunities that were invisible before. You take action you would have avoided in doubt. You develop courage in the face of fear. In short, your inner world begins to align with your goal, and eventually, your outer world catches up. That's the power of desire backed by faith. It overrides excuses, it erases limitations, it builds momentum. Most people fail not because their dreams are too big, but because their belief is too small. They want something, but deep down they don't believe they deserve it or that they're capable of achieving it. So they hold back, they half-try, they give up when it gets hard, not because the goal was impossible, but because their inner conviction was too weak. To avoid that fate, you must nurture your desire daily. Feed your mind with visions of your future. Speak about your goal with confidence. Affirm it, picture it, write about it. Not as a fantasy, but as a certainty. Let your desire burn bright. Let your faith give it wings. Do not wait for evidence to believe. Believe first. The evidence will follow. This is not blind optimism. It is disciplined thinking. It is choosing to believe in your own power and in the laws of cause and effect. When desire is fierce and faith is unshakable, action becomes automatic. You move, you build, you persist, and eventually the results show. Desire gives you the reason, faith gives you the courage. Together, they give you the reality you were born to create. Your mind is your workshop. Everything you want to achieve, become, or create begins not in the world around you, but in the world within you. Your thoughts are the tools, your imagination is the blueprint, and your focus is the craftsman's hand. Whatever you construct mentally, you begin to move toward physically. And if you do not take control of what you are building in your mind, you risk constructing outcomes you never truly intended. Think about this. Every invention, every business, every book, every movement in history began as a single thought in someone's mind. Before the light bulb existed, Edison saw it in his imagination. Before a building touched the sky, the architect designed it on paper after first conceiving it in thought. Before a person speaks, they think. Before they act, they decide. And before they achieve, they believe. Your mind is the starting point of your reality. It is the command center, and just like a physical workshop, it can be cluttered or organized, sharp or dull, passive or productive. If you fill it with fear, you will build hesitation. If you feed it doubt, you will build excuses. If you let it run wild with distractions and negativity, it will build confusion and failure. But if you feed it purpose, confidence, clarity, and creativity, it will produce ideas, direction, and power. Most people do not lose to a lack of opportunity. They lose because their mental workshop is working against them. They think aimlessly, react emotionally, and repeat patterns that do not serve them. They've never learned to use their mind. They're simply used by their mind. But you are not a slave to your thoughts. You are the master of them. And mastery begins when you decide to take responsibility for the quality of what you think. This means you must treat your mind like a sacred place. Protect it from poison, be it negative influences, destructive media, cynical people, or even your own untrained inner voice. You must also furnish it with useful material, books that challenge you, questions that stretch you, goals that excite you, and values that ground you. The mind, like any workshop, produces based on the materials it is given. Your imagination is the most powerful part of this workshop. What you can vividly imagine, you begin to emotionally experience, and what you emotionally experience, you start to attract through your focus and behavior. If you continually visualize failure, loss, or shame, you begin to act out those scripts. But if you rehearse success, courage, and mastery in your mind, you begin to carry yourself in a way that invites those results. It's not magic, it's mechanism. The brain learns through repetition. The more you dwell on something, the more familiar it becomes, and what is familiar becomes comfortable, even if it's destructive. That's why people stay stuck in patterns, not because they like them, but because their mind has accepted them. So the only way to change your results is to change what you repeatedly think. This is why disciplined mental practice matters. Visualization, affirmation, focus exercises, journaling. These are not just motivational cliches. They are the techniques of individuals who understand that the mind is the first field of battle. If you win there, the rest becomes strategy. If you lose there, nothing else can compensate. Your future is not written in your environment. It is written in your mind, and your mind is under your control, if you choose to take that control. So enter your mental workshop each day with intent. Choose your tools, build something worthy, and remember, every day, whether you're aware of it or not, your mind is building your tomorrow. Make sure it's building something you truly want. Persistence turns potential into power. It is the great separator, the difference between those who dream and those who achieve, those who start and those who finish. You may have talent. You may have intelligence, imagination, even passion. But without persistence, all of it stays dormant. It never reaches its peak. It never expresses itself fully. Potential is only the promise of greatness. Persistence is what delivers on that promise. Many people begin with excitement. The vision is clear, the motivation is strong, and the initial steps feel good. But the moment resistance appears, difficulty, failure, criticism, or delay, they pause. They second guess. They start looking for an easier path. But here's the truth. Every worthwhile goal will test your will, and that test is not meant to stop you. It's meant to refine you. Persistence is the act of continuing, not blindly but purposefully, again and again regardless of the immediate result. It is a mindset that says, I may not have succeeded yet, but I am not done. That simple mindset, when practiced daily, becomes a force that nothing can permanently stop. Because persistence is immune to temporary defeat, it sees setbacks as feedback, it treats failure as part of the process, it keeps showing up until the world must take notice. Think of any skill you've developed, whether it's reading, speaking, writing, or leading. None of it came from talent alone. It came from repetition, practice, correction, repeated effort. Over time, what once felt impossible became natural. That's what persistence does. It transforms effort into excellence. And this applies not just to action, but to belief. You must persist in believing in your purpose, even when others do not. You must persist in holding your vision, even when it looks like nothing is happening. Progress is often invisible at first. Roots grow before the tree breaks the surface. Foundations are laid before a single wall is built. If you quit in the invisible stage, you never get to see what could have been. Your mind will try to talk you out of persistence. It will say, "What's the point?" or "This is taking too long." That's the exact moment you must push through, because right behind that wall of doubt is the break. Through most people never reach. They quit just before the momentum builds. But those who persist keep walking, and suddenly they find themselves further than they ever imagined. It's also important to remember that persistence is not the same as stubbornness. Stubbornness is repeating the same method even when it fails. Persistence is adapting your approach while holding on to your purpose. If something doesn't work, change the strategy, but never abandon the mission. Evaluate, learn, adjust, but do not retreat. That's how persistence becomes intelligent. It's not just about working hard, it's about growing stronger with every step. The most powerful version of you is not the one who never struggles, it's the one who never stays down. Persistence turns pain into growth, it turns fear into experience, it takes the weight of difficulty and uses it to build strength. Every time you persist, even in small ways, you train your nervous system, your confidence, and your willpower to keep going under pressure. Over time, that becomes an unstoppable force. Potential is wasted without action, and action without persistence is scattered and short-lived. But persistent effort, applied daily, compounds. It builds mastery, builds trust, builds character, and most importantly, it builds momentum. That momentum is what begins to separate you from the average, not because you're more gifted, but because you're more determined. So keep going, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because every time you do, you move closer to turning your hidden potential into realized power. And once that power is unlocked, very little can stand in your way. Fear is the enemy of progress. It disguises itself in many forms: doubt, hesitation, procrastination, overthinking. But at its core, it is a silent force that stalls forward motion. It does not need to shout or attack to be effective. All it has to do is whisper, "What if you fail? What if they judge you? What if you're not ready?" And in that whisper, momentum is lost. Dreams are delayed. Potential is paralyzed. Fear thrives in the unknown. It feeds on uncertainty and grows stronger when we avoid it. The more we avoid the things that scare us, the more control fear gains. It becomes a habit, a default reaction, and slowly, without noticing, we begin to make choices not based on what we want, but on what we want to avoid. We stay silent when we should speak. We settle when we should reach. We hold back when we should move forward. Yet the most dangerous thing about fear is that it convinces you it's keeping you safe. That's the illusion. Fear says, stay here, don't risk, don't fail. But what it doesn't tell you is that by staying where you are, you're already losing. You're losing time, confidence, growth, and opportunity. Safety is not progress. Comfort is not purpose. And avoidance is not protection. It's self-sabotage in disguise. If you look at the people who have achieved anything significant, whether in business, art, science, or leadership, you'll find that they all encountered fear, but they chose to act anyway. That's what separates progress makers from spectators. It's not the absence of fear, it's their relationship to it. They learn to see fear as a signal, not a stop sign, a signal that says, here is where the growth is, here is the next challenge, here is where the unknown can become known. You can't eliminate fear entirely, but you can reframe it. Instead of asking, what if it goes wrong, ask, what if it goes right? Instead of thinking, what will people think of me? Ask, what do I think of myself if I don't try? Because the truth is, the pain of regret is far greater than the discomfort of risk. At least risk moves you forward. Regret keeps you looking backward. One powerful way to weaken fear is to bring it into the light. Name it, write it, examine it. When fear remains vague, it seems huge, but when you define exactly what you're afraid of, you take away its mystery, and often you'll find that your worst case scenarios are either unlikely, manageable, or survivable. The mind has a tendency to exaggerate threats when they're left unchallenged, but once you confront them, they begin to shrink. Fear also loses power through action. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a blow to fear's control. You don't need to wait for confidence to begin. Confidence is the reward for action, not the prerequisite. So take the first step and then the next. Movement dissolves fear. Momentum makes it irrelevant. Each time you act in the presence of fear, you train yourself to become braver, not fearless, but bold enough to move anyway. Progress demands courage, not heroic, movie, scene courage, but quiet, everyday courage. The kind that says, I'm scared, but I'll try. I'm uncertain, but I'll begin. That kind of courage builds self-respect, and self-respect builds progress. The stronger you become in facing fear, the more you realize it was never about the world stopping you. It was about your mind letting you stay small. Fear will always knock, that's life, but you don't have to open the door. You can acknowledge it, smile, and move forward anyway, because forward is where growth lives. Forward is where fulfillment waits. And forward is where you find out who you really are. The enemy of progress is not failure, it is fear, and once you see that clearly, you gain the power to take back control, one bold step at a time. You become what you think about most. This is not just a poetic phrase or motivational line. It is a psychological and spiritual truth. Your dominant thoughts shape your identity, guide your behavior, and influence your destiny. Whatever occupies your mind consistently begins to form the architecture of your life. Your thoughts create emotional states, which drive decisions, which produce habits, which become results. And over time, you start to live out the very reality you have rehearsed in your head. Every day, your mind is engaged in a quiet conversation with your future. Through your thoughts, you are either constructing a life of strength, purpose, and growth, or one of limitation, fear, and stagnation. If you constantly dwell on doubt, failure, comparison, or insecurity, your actions will begin to reflect that mindset. You will shrink your goals. You will hesitate when it's time to act. You will talk yourself out of opportunity before it even arrives, not because the opportunity wasn't real, but because your thoughts told you that you weren't ready or worthy. Conversely, when your mind is filled with purpose, clarity, and determination, everything begins to change. You start noticing chances where others see problems. You take risks that once terrified you. You recover from setbacks faster because your thinking is aligned with growth, not defeat. You begin to act like the person you intend to become, even before the results show up. And soon enough, those results follow. The brain is like fertile soil. It doesn't care what kind of seed you plant, positive or negative. It will grow whatever is repeated. If you plant worry, it grows more anxiety. If you plant goals, it grows vision. If you plant gratitude, it grows joy. This is not a coincidence. It's biology. The more you think a thought, the more deeply it carves a path in your brain. This is called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself through repetition. So if you want to change your life, you must start by changing what you repeatedly think. Many people try to change their circumstances without first changing their mindset, but circumstances reflect mindset. A person with a poverty mindset may earn more money, but they'll still live in lack. A person with a victim mindset may change jobs or relationships, but they'll still feel powerless. Until the mind shifts, nothing external will feel secure. That's why transformation starts from within, because the outer world is a mirror of the inner world. You must therefore become a guardian of your thoughts. Pay attention to your mental diet. What are you feeding your mind? Is it fear-based news, toxic conversations, self-defeating beliefs? Or are you feeding it with goals, affirmations, books, mentors, and reflection? You cannot expect to grow if you plant weeds in your mental garden every day. What you put in, you will get out, always. Now, this isn't about ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing to focus your mind on solutions, growth, purpose, and power, even in the face of challenge. It's about directing your thoughts like a captain steers a ship. Storms may come, but your direction remains intact because you're thinking from a place of strength, not surrender. If you want to unlock your potential, it begins with mastering your inner world. Begin to think like the person you wish to become. What would they focus on daily? What would they believe about themselves? How would they handle failure? Let those questions guide the content of your thoughts. Because over time, you will rise or fall, not by what you know or even what you do, but by what you think about most often. So think boldly, think intentionally, think powerfully, because your thoughts are not harmless. They are the blueprint of your future, and the person you are becoming is already being shaped, right now, by what you allow to dominate your mind. Choose wisely.